This is Steve with Rocky Mountain ATV MC, and today I'm going to show you some basic winch maintenance and how to replace your winch cable with a synthetic rope. Maintaining your winch is something that often gets overlooked, and by doing a few simple things, you can keep your winch running in tip-top order. Now with your cable or rope being the highest wear item, you're eventually going to have to replace that. So today I'm going to show you how to replace the cable with the new synthetic rope on this Yamaha Grizzly equipped with a Tusk winch. To do this job, you're going to need some basic hand tools, heavy-duty gloves, rags, and safety glasses, along with a copy of your OEM service manual for more information, proper procedures, and specs. Now we have a wide variety of replacement parts and accessories for your winch, just like this Tusk synthetic rope or cable. So come check us out at Rocky Mountain for the parts you need. Now there's three functions to a winch. You have your winch, you have a solenoid, and you have a switch. Now most of the time the connection between these is where you're going to have a problem. So my first tip would be to go back through all of your connectors and add a little dielectric grease to help keep the water out and the corrosion down, keeping a good connection between all of the parts. Now my second tip is just keep it clean. I mean, if you have dirt and mud and everything packed up in there, it's likely to not work right if it's binding up and fighting something. So keeping it clean is going to keep it functioning well. My third tip is disengaging and engaging the freewheeling function on your winch. Now these don't get used very often, and so before you take it out, it's not a bad idea just to switch that back and forth to make sure that it's working smoothly. My fourth tip is lubricating the fairlead. Now if we take a little multi-purpose lube and spray it on the fairlead rollers, it'll keep those rolling smoothly. Now if you have a cable installed on your winch, there's a few things that we can do there. Now because the cable is subject to the elements, it could begin to corrode. So we could take a little multi-purpose lube and spray it on the cable to help with that. But just keep in mind the next time you use it, it may be a bit messy. Now the other thing is every time that you use your winch, it's always a really good idea to pull the cable back out and rewind it. If you don't do this, it could potentially get bound up, causing kinks or even a failure with the winch because it's not wound up correctly. So that's my other tip with the cable. Make sure to pull it out and rewind it correctly. Now if you have a rope installed on your winch, there's really only one thing that you need to do there. Every time that you use it, you probably want to pull it back out and rewind it back on the drum. It's a lot like the cable in the sense that if you don't and you keep using it, it will wound up incorrectly and it could bind and potentially cause damage to the rope or the winch. So just make sure that every time you use it, you want to pull it back out and rewind it back on to the winch correctly. That will help make it last longer. Now that we've covered some basic tips on winch maintenance, I want to show you how to remove the winch cable and install a synthetic rope. Now the synthetic rope that I have here is set up for a plow, which means it's only about 6 feet long. Because the repetitious use of a plow, it will wear out fairly quick. So this is a cost-effective way than wearing out the first 6 feet of your cable and having to replace the whole cable, or wearing out your synthetic rope and having to replace the full-length synthetic rope. Now to remove the cable, first we need to remove the hook. Grab a pair of pliers and we'll go ahead and remove the cotter pin, and then we'll remove the hook. Now you don't need to remove the hook first. If you need to use the hook to pull the cable out, you can do that and remove the hook after. Now we just need to disengage the winch and pull on the cable until we've removed all of it out. Now you can use the winch itself to help you do this, but if it is bound up, just keep in mind that it will unspool while you're trying to do that and make it worse. So if you can and pull it out with your hand, that would work best. Now this winch has a set screw that holds the cable in. Now there's a number of different ways that cables are mounted to the drums, but essentially it's usually just a hole that you stick the cable in and then you start to wind up the cable. And the cable itself is what holds itself to the drum. Now I like these Tusk ones especially because they do have a set screw, so it's kind of extra secure. Now because this cable is still in great shape, we're just going to wind it up and we'll save it for springtime when we can reinstall it. Now that we have the cable removed, it's a good idea to give the drum a quick inspection just to make sure that everything looks good there. Now this procedure will work whether you're installing a synthetic rope or the cable. We'll first start by taking the non-loop end and we'll feed it through the fairlead into that hole. It's also a good idea to extend your rope or your cable all the way out so it makes the winding process a lot easier. Now that we have that tight, we'll go ahead and engage the winch and use the winch to wind the rope. Now you obviously want to start on one side and work slowly towards the other side with keeping the rope right next to the next winding. You may need another set of hands to run the winch while you wind the rope. And you definitely need to keep a lot of tension on the rope as it winds so that it's a nice tight wind. Now before we install the hook, Tusk makes this rubber bump stop that is a great accessory to have on your winch. So you essentially slide this over the rope or your cable, and then you go ahead and install your hook. And what happens is when you suck your cable in, it gives you a little bit of buffer there, and it doesn't put as much strain on your winch when you're bringing your hook all the way back to its resting place. And lastly, the hook. If you end up damaging one of these, you can replace them individually. And that's it. That's all there is to replacing the winch cable with the synthetic rope. Hopefully the tips I've given you will help you maintain your winch for a long time. If you need more parts, apparel, and accessories, come check us out at RockyMountainATVMC.com. And if you like what you see here, subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is Steve. We'll catch you next time.